Good evening, dandies. Welcome to Undetermined, the podcast.
So how are you guys doing? How do you know Mark, by the way?
So
long story.
I'll
But go ahead, Matt. You start. You know him better than I do.
Yeah, I have a weird. Well, I sort of go back with Mark, but not really. So, like 20 years ago, something like that.
Yeah.
His old band Paw came through, and I was working in radio at the time, and I had to do like a really awkward interview with him because I wasn't supposed to be the guy that was interviewing him. The DJ wasn't in the studio at the time, and it was a big festival and whatever. And I was forced to interview the band. Right. I wasn't prepared for it at all. It was just kind of thrown at me. So it was like this really awkward and terrible interview that I did, which was actually pretty funny and memorable.
Yeah.
But I actually had kind of kept it in the back of my mind. Like when we started doing this podcast thing, I'm like, man, I want to get a hold of that guy. I want to redo that whole thing. And I looked Mark up and holy shit, Godzillionaire, this band he's doing now is really good.
Yeah.
So
they're awesome.
Yeah, I think at the time when they did the interview, I think they smelled his fear,
Right.
And they were just like, we got a green one here. We got a guy who's not prepared. Yeah, and they just ripped him apart. I mean, from what I understand, it was really funny and just tried to embarrass him to death.
Right. Whereabouts? Yeah. Are you guys in Lawrence, or are you in where in Kansas City?
Matt's in Kansas City, Missouri.
Right.
I'm in Columbia, Missouri. So we're all kind of in a line.
Right.
That's maybe about 3.5 hours difference between us all, maybe.
Right. Yeah. I only realized recently that Kansas City isn't in Kansas.
Yeah. So did our president.
Yeah. Me and Donald have that in common, right. and not a lot else, I'd imagine.
Well, you got an excuse, though. I mean,
we can figure out pretty quickly you're not exactly from as close to here as he might be.
No, yeah, exactly. That's true. Right. I'm from the other side of the pond.
Yeah.
But why is it called Kansas City then?
So it's actually two cities. That are in two states. So there is a Kansas City, Kansas, and they are connected, right? But they are separate legally. They're separate cities. It's all one. You can, so we'll refer to it as KCK, and then you're from Kansas. KCMO is Missouri, clearly.
Right.
And there's even a road that goes right down the middle called State Line Road, and it is literally the state line. So if you're driving north, you're in Missouri. If you're driving south on it, you're in Kansas. Right. Which is kind of cool.
When you won the Super Bowl, did people in Kansas celebrate that?
Oh, sure. I mean, we're all kind of a community.
Right.
But
got it.
But the team is on the Missouri side. The Missouri side is kind of the bigger side, and that's the side that you think about when you think about Kansas City.
Right, because the stadium is well within Missouri territory. It's
right.
Yeah, but it's one of those things where it kind of saddles two states. But I don't know. I was hearing that Kansas City, Missouri was actually settled before it was in Kansas. That kind of expanded that way.
The origin of it. So it's actually my understanding of it is that this was actually the city of Kansas or the township of Kansas or whatever it was before there was a state.
Yeah.
Right. So then it grew and got kind of big, and then the state came along of Kansas, and they kind of went with that name. So actually the city was around before the state of Kansas.
Interesting.
There's our history lesson.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So it makes a little more sense when you know that, I guess.
Yeah. But we don't expect you to know. I mean, being from Cambridge and it's not like you're the president of this area.
No.
Like you should know.
Yeah. That was hilarious, I thought.
Right. I think there's a lot of UK geography that I would not be able to answer those questions.
Right. That's fair enough. England's tiny, though. It's probably the size of Kansas.
Yeah. Was it a shock to you when you came over? I don't know just how spread out things were, because I know a lot of Europeans. I'll hear that from them, like, "Oh, we'll just drive from Missouri to New York." No, you won't. No, you won't.
Yeah. I mean, it's shockingly big, isn't it, America? Whenever I fly across it, I'm astonished by the size of it.
Yeah, it really is. Well, before we get too far out of the weeds on that, we're terrible at doing introductions. We always do this. We just hop into the conversation. So, to put a finer point on it, to do an introduction, who are we speaking to this evening?
This is Adam Mason. I'm an English film director and writer.
Yes.
Very
good one, I think.
We're very excited to have you, Adam. Thank you for joining us.
I'm honored to be on it.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of your stuff. I really am. I've been binging you for the last couple of days, really.
Oh, right.
Trying to get caught up. There's a lot. A lot. You're a prolific cat.
Well, I've been doing it a while now.
Yeah.
Yeah, my God, 25 years.
Wow.
So, let's see. Some of the films I watched in the last few days, I watched Junkie.
Oh, wow.
I watched, we watched They Come Knocking a long time ago. Matt and I both did when we had the Godzillionaire track on there and stuff.
Right.
And,
yeah.
But yeah, lots of other music videos too. So you grow up in Cambridge, right? East, is like Eastern England or Central Eastern England, something like that?
Like an hour north of London.
Big college town.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't grow up in Cambridge. I was born in Cambridge Hospital, but I grew up in a village with probably 10 houses.
Oh, right.
So literally in the middle of nowhere.
Oh, wow.
Outside of town.
Outside of Cambridge, about 20 miles from Cambridge.
Yeah. So what? And the big thing I'm curious about in that timeline in your life is like, okay, kind of the chicken or the egg thing. I mean, you directed a bunch of music videos as well. You're a metal fan. Is that fair enough to say?
Yeah.
With all the metal bands you've...
Yeah, I grew up loving that kind of music.
Yeah.
And then I guess because I started off doing horror movies in my 20s, I discovered that a lot of people in metal bands tend to be horror fans as well.
Right.
So there was a lot of crossover. So I started getting approached by bands wanting to do, very low budget music videos. And I just kind of did one, and then that led to another, and then another, and then next thing I've done like 200. So
wow.
So your first thing was film, though. That was your first kind of love.
Yeah, I wanted to. No, actually, I mean, I actually always wanted to be a musician. I mean, I played guitar since I was, a teenager, and I was in bands and stuff. I never really had the confidence to pursue that, but I would rather have been a musician, I think. And I felt like I had to choose between either pursuing that or the film thing. I didn't feel like I could really do both,
Yeah.
So, and I'm quite a kind of introverted person in a way, so the film thing kind of suited me.
Yeah.
Right.
So the stage persona wasn't jumping out at you.
Yeah, the idea of being on stage, I'm not a flamboyant show-offy type person, so it just would fill me with terror.
Right.
Basically, which is a little bit of a problem, I think.
Yeah.
It can be. I can relate to that. I used to be I'm an introvert at heart. And it took me a long time. It was a lot of personal work to get myself to a position where I could actually get in front of people and talk.
Yeah.
And it doesn't, I think I realized it doesn't mean I'm shy. It just means I don't like talking to people unless I've got something I want to say.
Yeah, I feel like that.
And I don't like listening to people unless they have something worth listening to.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. I used to hate public speaking. I've kind of got used to it as I got older and had to do it a lot, so.
Yeah.
But it's not, being on stage, I wouldn't choose to ever be on stage.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I ended up getting a theater degree. So.
Nice.
Yeah.
Right. Well, there you go. Right. There you go. I can see why people do it. I mean, I wish I was able to do it. But anyway, yeah.
So I really liked acting.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I just can't act at all. I'm terrible. I'm a one-man band when it comes to the film stuff. I do all aspects of it, but acting is one thing I cannot do.
So how do you approach that as a director? Like if you're giving somebody instruction.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I really like. I'm really into psychology, and I think directing's a lot of psychology. Like you have to kind of understand people and how people tick.
Yeah.
To do it, and actors are a very specific breed of person. You know, like it's definitely like an actor gene, I think, or they all have things in common. And although there's different types of actor, and you need to deal with them in different ways, I just find it really fascinating, like how. And it's something that it has a lot of mystery to me, in the same way that great musicians, like I don't quite know how they do it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and I don't, acting is like magic to me. Like when it's really good, and it's invisible.
Mm-hmm.
But there's so much technique behind it. Like I think a lot of people think that anyone could do it, and I think that's couldn't be further from the truth.
Right. No, I would agree with that. But I think there's a certain element of that too to directing.
Right. Yeah. Directing's more like being a technician, though, you know, and you have to do a lot of different things.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas acting is, I don't know how it's so hard to kind of like make it seamless, you know, but make it seem as if it's effortless almost. It appears to be effortless, but it's very far from that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I've got a lot of respect for actors.
So what really bit you with the bug? It was like, you know, an early film you can think of or something, or the cinematography on something that you saw and just like, yeah, like, I want to do that.
Yeah, I mean, when I was growing up, like I said, I lived in a very isolated place, and I'm an only child, so I didn't have brothers or sisters, and there weren't really other kids around where I grew up.
Right.
So I got really into movies at a young age, and it was like kind of the birth of VHS and video stores and stuff. So I would just binge on everything I could. And
yeah,
I guess the first movie that really had a massive impact on me was Jaws, the Steven Spielberg shark film.
Oh, yeah.
I was obsessed with that, and I would watch it every day, basically, and I knew it all off by heart and stuff.
Okay.
And then I think that was around the time that I realized it was actually a thing that someone did, was make a film. Because Spielberg was a kind of the rock star of directors back then.
Oh, yeah.
So his name was being thrown around a lot, and I realized that he'd done several other movies that I really like E.T. and stuff.
Sure.
And so I became really interested in what that job was. And about the same time, I was really into reading as well. So I started to read a lot of Stephen King.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, I was interested in who these people were who created this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so I always really like writing, and you know, that's kind of my other passion.
Well, I think that's an interesting thing, kind of generationally, just talking about that, like people our age or maybe a little bit older, but like, you know, before that in the time of film, before that in the time of, I mean, people knew books and didn't know authors. People knew movies and didn't know directors.
Yeah, right.
You know, or people knew characters and didn't know actors.
Yeah.
So that's an interesting take on it. Yeah, that you kind of latched onto what he was doing.
Yeah.
And said, yeah, and found that like being a job. It's like, I can do that.
Exactly, yeah. And then my dad got a video camera. I remember he bought a video camera back from work that we borrowed for a weekend or something, and I sort of got into the filming side of things and then started making short films, and it evolved from there. It wasn't something that I ever thought I would be good enough at to make a living out of it. You know, I didn't dive into it thinking I would be successful at it. It was just something that I really loved doing, and, you know, next thing I knew, I was actually doing it.
Mm-hmm. So where was that kind of the next thing you know part? Where did that come in? Where did you say, you know, I'm going to go out on a limb and try to get a job doing this shit? I mean, that's got to be daunting, right?
Yeah. Well, you know, I just never really wanted to do a normal 9 to 5. Like I've never been the kind of person to want to do that. So I basically did everything I could to not have to do that. You know, and
no, I get it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I went to university after I left school, and I was kind of a bit lost. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't think the film thing would be realistic in any way. And then I got kicked out of university after about 6 months. And the day I left, I went into this careers office place, and a woman there asked she said the only thing I appeared to be interested in were movies. Mm-hmm. And had I ever thought about going to film school? And I'd never even heard of film school, let alone thought of going to film school.
Yeah, what's that?
Yeah. So she gave me back then in England there were only 2 film schools.
Mm-hmm.
Now there's probably 200.
Yeah.
So I looked into them, and then I kind of thought, well, maybe why not? It got me out of having to get a proper job again. Right. So I went and interviewed at this place called the London International Film School in Covent Garden in London, and to my great surprise, I got in. That really changed everything for me.
Oh, right on. So horror's always been kind of your your niche, though, or
Yeah,
because I noticed that. I mean, it's a big kind of running theme in a lot of what you do. If it's not horror, it's psychological mind fuckery for sure. There's a lot of that going on in your films.
right. Yeah, I mean, I always loved special effects and stuff when I was growing up, teenager and stuff.
Yeah.
That's what one of the things I thought I wanted to do because I didn't think I would be able to be a director.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I really liked horror films from that side of it, you know. And then as I got older, I was just really drawn to the kind of psychological horror, like you were saying. So
Right.
most of my favorite movies are, you know, like when a real director does a horror movie, they tend to be my favorite movies. So when Stanley Kubrick does a horror movie like The Shining, it's like the best horror movie. Or
Yes.
Or Adrian Lyne, who did Fatal Attraction, he did this movie called Jacob's Ladder that I just love that movie.
I kind of love that movie too.
Mm-hmm.
That's a great one.
And then stuff like The Wicker Man or Angel Heart. Those kind of films, just, you know, they were my influences.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that. I always like the kind of psychological thriller, the ones that make me think.
Right.
If it's just going to be a slasher, I get bored.
Me too. Yeah. I used to like horror movies. I'd watch anything, but then, especially since I had kids, I'm just like, I would never choose to watch a horror movie now, if you know what I mean.
Right. Yeah. I was kind of thinking that watching Junkie today, and I was like, yeah, glad my kids aren't home.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I made a lot of quite extreme films.
Yeah.
I was quite angry when I was younger, and I used to express it through these very angry movies that I made.
Sure.
Hey, do what you know, though, right? You know?
No, yeah. Now I'm pretty chilled out. So
yeah.
Are you one of those? Yeah, that's how you keep your powder dry.
Right. Yeah, I used to. It was kind of therapy for me making the films I made.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense.
I was always really interested in why people would want to watch violent movies.
Right.
And you know, I had a few kind of like violent experiences when I was a teenager with people, and so for me, it was always like trying to put the audience in the shoes of what it felt like to be on the receiving end of that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so for years, I was kind of driven by this kind of passion and anger to put that across. And then when I started to have a little bit of success at it, I had this sickening realization that people liked watching it because it was like a kind of pornography of violence, if that makes sense. You know, people find it titillating in a way, and I find that. I mean, I understand it. You know, I like watching boxing, for example. I know why I like watching it.
Sure.
But I found that a little bit disturbing. The more I got into it, and the more I went to horror festivals and stuff, and met the kind of people who like my kind of films. Yeah, I realized that they weren't seeing it quite the same way I was seeing it.
That's interesting.
When I was watching it, though, and I've always kind of been this way when I watch a horror movie, it's like, if, like you say, like the Kubrick example, and like with what you do, it's got me kind of peeking through a couple of fingers. I feel uncomfortable, you know?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Which is cool to know that that's your intention.
Yeah.
You know, that it's like, you know, that you're not just going over the top just to be over the top, but it's like you really want somebody squirming in their seat. And really, I'm a huge horror fan, but I don't like violence, you know?
Right. Yeah.
And like kind of think one thing Matt was saying with like a slasher film is it's kind of gratuitous and it's a video game kind of element. There's not really, you're not attached to those people,
right?
You know, but that is interesting because I'm like, ooh, you know, watching some of your characters and some of the extreme shit they're going through.
Right.
There's just, you know, it makes you squirm, and that's cool to know that that's your intent.
Yeah. No, it is. I mean, I always like it when a film's actually about something. You know, underneath the surface, it's kind of trying to say something about life.
Yeah,
those are the kind of movies I like, and horror movies do that really well.
Yeah.
But a lot of horror movies don't even try and do it, you know?
Right.
No, they just go for the splash, I guess.
Yeah. And one thing I dislike is like movies that are just weird for the sake of being weird, or just violent for the sake of being violent.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't get that from your films. I think it's really engaging in that way. Engaging yet
thank you.
Disgusting at the same time.
Yeah. They've become less disgusting, you know, in the last 10 years or so.
I would say that.
Yeah.
I suppose.
Yeah. I agree. Still enjoyed it though, even the disgusting parts. Really liked it.
Thank you, yeah.
I liked that it made me feel something.
Yeah. I mean, Junkie was kind of the most personal film I ever made.
Oh, really?
It was kind of like based on me growing up and stuff, I think. Like the dad in that movie is like an exaggerated version of my dad.
Got it.
Yeah, Andrew Howard. Yeah.
Andrew Howard,
great. Yeah.
Who was kind of, he knows my dad, so he was kind of doing a
does he?
hilarious impression. Yeah.
Yeah. It took me a second looking at him, like trying to figure out, it's like, who the,
Recognize him.
that's who's that guy? And then I looked at him, it's like, oh yeah, it's Andrew Howard.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like, he's in Watchmen and all sorts of great stuff. And
yeah. We put old age makeup on him.
Yeah.
I wasn't gonna cast him, and then he's the best actor I know probably. So I was like, well, let's just slap some makeup on him.
Sure.
Yeah.
How did you hook up with him?
I've known him for a long time. When I went to film school, I was like 21 or something, and he was kind of like the hot London actor at the time, and he was in a lot of the good student films and things, and was forging a career. Like he was starting to do really well.
Right.
And then he was someone, he didn't really pay any attention to me back then, but I clocked him and had him as someone that I always wanted to work with when I had the opportunity to. And then almost 10 years later, I had the opportunity to do this film called The Devil's Chair, and he was just the first person that came into my head. So we kind of knew of each other, and I reached out to him, and ever since then we were, thick as thieves.
Oh, cool.
Done a lot of films together, and we moved over to LA together. We shared an apartment for the first 6 months or so, and
oh wow, so real close.
Yeah,
real close.
That's cool.
Yeah, really close. I'm his daughter's godfather. He's my eldest daughter's godfather. So yeah, we're like family basically.
Oh, that's nice.
It's interesting how often it is that like people kind of grow up together and rise together in some ways to find these positions.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, I have a few friends that we've been doing it for like 20 years now, 25 years, and it's nice to see the people who are still around, still doing it, and have found some success.
That's really cool. I'm glad that you're experiencing that and they're experiencing that. That's really, I don't know, it is fascinating just how those kinds of, it seems like that personality, they seem to find each other somehow.
Right.
I don't know what it is that creates that or makes that happen. But there seems like there's something to it from my perspective, because how do they find each other? What is that energy that brings that?
It's true.
Yes.
It's like a surprisingly small pool of people doing it. Like after a few years of doing it professionally, like you start to realize that everyone is kind of connected to each other in a way. So especially the British thing, like in LA, there's not that many British people out here doing what we do. So we tend to all kind of know each other, especially in the horror community. Like there's not even, there's even less people doing that. So
that makes sense.
You tend to run into each other.
Yeah, I didn't want to stereotype that, but I was thinking about just like Simon Pegg in like the UK and how he knows like every comedian that's there, and they all know each other, but they all kind of work together to build each other up, and carry themselves over to other markets, and I think that's great. But it's like. Yeah, it's like, do they all really know each other? I don't think that sounds racist.
Well, I guess you can kind of compare it. Like, I don't know. The regional acts, especially around Kansas City, the acts really seem to like they have each other's back.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I that's one thing John and I have been getting kind of lucky with getting involved with that scene, or just kind of it's cool.
Right.
It's really awesome to see that happening, and we're feeling really blessed to be in some small way accepted by that community.
Right.
Yeah, I see that with bands. Like a lot of the bands seem to all know each other as well, which is really cool.
Right.
So it's a kind of a community, I guess. Although I say that, but it's also very competitive and snide in the film, especially in the horror world. Like, the really fanatical horror fans are quite a peculiar breed, I would say.
Yeah.
I could see that. Do you get a lot of undue criticism, do you think?
So yeah, sometimes, especially I started doing this before the internet existed. So once that came in, it was quite, I remember the first time I got a bad review, for example, and it felt like a slap to the face, because you realize that especially this day and age, like anyone can be a critic.
Oh yeah.
I'm just used to it now. I don't read anything good or anything bad, because which one is true. They're both true, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a lot of cattiness in the horror community, which I think is quite ironic.
Yeah.
Given that most people are supposed to be kind of sensitive, and they horror fans tend to have a bit of a stereotype to them, but they end up being the most venomous motherfuckers you've ever meet.
Yeah, I imagine so. Yeah. Well, yeah. They're used to a lot of cliches, and they're used to it's been done before, blah, blah, blah. I could see that. But I mean, yeah, that's funny.
Yeah. Well, I think it's also because they're very internet savvy. They tend to spend a lot of time on their computers and stuff. So they tend to be also the kind of people who troll on the internet.
Yeah. Right.
Desensitized by all that violence.
I think trolling in general is just it's an immature way to show how smart you are, or try to.
Right.
I want to look intelligent, so I'm going to bag on somebody else, and I'm going to be really articulate in how I bag on them. And fuck you. You're just looking to complain.
There's a movie you made, motherfucker.
I know, yeah, exactly.
Right.
I think the internet just brings out the absolute worst in people.
It can. It certainly can.
It's not. I kind of wish it didn't exist. As even though I spend most of my day on it,
it's such a love-hate relationship.
Yeah. Well, especially for what we do.
Yeah,
I mean, we wouldn't be having the show. Right. I mean, there's definitely good things about it. I mean, like I say, I don't like to be a Luddite, and I think like it or lump it, we're going to have to accept where it's going to a certain degree, and we can help shape that.
Right.
There's some great things. I mean, people are seeing in places in Africa how to do open heart surgeries by brilliant surgeons all around the world, and they're seeing this by Skype, and it's done some great things. There's no doubt about it. But it's also a big porn dump and everything. It's everything about humanity, the good things and the bad things.
I just think the world used to feel like a really big place, and now it feels really small. It feels really small somehow.
Yeah,
if that makes sense. Like the internet makes the world feel small.
Yeah. Well, I think I got some of that watching Just Fucking With You.
Right. Yeah.
Watching that earlier, it's just like how that guy, and that was the thing that kind of stuck out to me about that movie. Not to just analyze the movie, but just how he was kind of isolated at that hotel and isolated. He was on his own island.
Yeah.
Kind of an island he created by doing all his like shit reviews and trolling and
Right.
Yeah, I wasn't even making that connection while we were having that discussion, but yeah,
that's
totally
what I was thinking of.
Yeah.
No.
It was funny. Yeah. I mean, the reason I was attracted to make that film was because I never saw that character as being the hero of the film. I always saw the bad guy as being the hero.
Right. It was hard to start to love that guy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that was something that wasn't. I wouldn't say that was in the script, because in the script, the Chester guy, the bad guy, was written as quite a cartoon, a stereotypical bad guy, and like an overweight psycho and a wife beater. Although he was obviously very funny,
right?
But I just wanted to cast this insanely charismatic, good-looking version of Chester, who basically just completely fucked over this troll, because that really amused me.
Yeah. No, and you nailed it. I thought it was great. There's like just going back and forth. It's like, who's for the longest time, it's like, who is the protagonist here? Who's the good guy? Who's the bad guy?
Right. Yeah. I mean, that was a very conscious thing on my part to do that. And
cool.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah. I have a real problem. I have a problem with trolls, as you can probably tell.
I do too.
I think everybody does.
Yeah. Well, there are a lot of them out there for everybody to be having a problem with them. I think.
Yeah. Well, I guess we all have it in us, though. That's the thing about it, isn't it? Like I can relate to what it's like. I participate in having my opinions and thinking my opinion is always right, and everyone else is wrong. That's what I mean about just bringing out the worst side in people. Everyone's talking about the things you're not supposed to talk about, like politics, religion.
Right.
Sure.
That is the internet, isn't it?
I'm definitely guilty of a few snide political comments.
Oh yeah.
Right. And maybe it will just become a thing where it just burns itself out, and everyone just gets fatigued by it and don't take it seriously anymore.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Maybe.
That's a good hope.
Well, and what kind of amuses me, I don't know, I've kind of been noticing this lately, is how many, you could, especially with politics, you can have like this debate going and both sides think they won.
Yeah.
Right.
It's true.
And really, both sides lost. That's the reality of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's like I said, it's, well, I don't think it's a redundant point, but just saying, like, looking at the casting of that film and stuff, I just kept thinking, like, who am I, in this movie? Because I think everybody does that when they're watching a film, especially if they're getting into a film and it's psychological. You're like, who am I in this movie?
Yeah.
And I went back and forth from being, Chester or the biker guy who's harassing him or or the troll. It's like, maybe we're all of these people,
Yeah. Well, I think that's probably true.
Yeah, that's a sad state of affairs, but kept me engaged in it. I enjoyed it.
Good, man. Good. Yeah. I mean,
for sure.
It's quite unusual.
Yeah.
Quite an unusual film. I know They Come Knocking is a lot more straightforward. So.
Yeah,
I would agree.
Yeah, I watched Fucking With You on my own. My wife enjoyed They Come Knocking. She was like, all into that one. Eating popcorn, and I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna let her watch this one. Well, I mean, let her. I say, like, I can control what she watches. I don't, but.
Yeah, I know. I control. I will definitely veto my wife watching some movies.
I'd say, nah.
Because she'll tell me she can handle it, and then she'll keep me up all night.
Right.
Terrified.
Right. You like that movie?
How could you sleep?
What's wrong with you?
I'm terrified. What if they come together? No.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
she does that. So are you married?
I'm married. I've got 3 little kids.
Yeah, got some little ones. I was assuming you were married to have the little ones.
Yeah, exactly. Thankfully. So yeah, everything's a little bit hectic for us. We've got a 7-year-old, a 5-year-old, and a 2-year-old.
Wow. Yeah.
Ooh.
So it's just a madhouse.
Yeah, that sounds exhausting. Just hearing that is enough to make me.
It's like all encompassing.
Yeah.
How about you guys? You got kids?
I've got an 11-year-old who's very alpha. Very soccer squad goals type, and just over the top. Everything is extra with her. So she's like having 2 kids.
Right.
And then I've got another one.
Right.
I've got another one who's 21, 22 years old. We got married very young.
Oh wow.
Yeah, we got married very young, like 1996. So
how's that having a grown-up child?
It's different, and the psychology is different because the youngest,
they can now drink together.
Yeah, we can now drink together, things like that. But it's like, but the older one is also the artist, and is also the very much opposite side of the brainer. And it's it's kind of like I posted on Facebook the other day, just talking. It's like my youngest asked me, so I didn't like the rules, and then Molly just didn't get the rules, and I was like, yeah, that's pretty much how it works.
Wow.
So we still struggle with those things all the time. So it's just like all those things just become amplified as you get older, but then you have to worry more about
right.
How can I get them through college? Can I get them through car insurance?
Right.
Can I, stop wrecking your car?
Yeah. So
you just worry.
Endless worry.
Right.
Because they're away. They're away at school. They're trying to pretend to be grown-ups, and they're not.
Yeah, I'm dreading
because what you were doing when you were 21.
Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly. It's kind of terrifying.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah. So I've got a 11-year-old boy. Or no, a 10-year-old boy.
Yeah.
Sorry. John's got the 11-year-old. They're besties, by the way. They just.
Yep.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Yep.
So they don't know a time when there wasn't the other. So they.
Yeah. Right.
He was really, really mad when we moved away from Columbia. John and I both lived in Columbia, Missouri for a number of years. So when we moved to Kansas City, he was pissed off.
Yeah.
Right.
Lost his best friend.
How far away is that?
Just a couple hours, just like 2 hours. Still,
it's not terrible.
UK standards really far. Missouri standards not that bad.
Yeah, exactly. That's true. Yeah.
He's an interesting personality. He's definitely got a lot of it. Very artistic.
Mm-hmm.
He's kind of, he makes me actually, I was thinking about this today. Like he kind of makes me think about why it is that I get intimidated by, like, I'm fascinated with directing, by the way, but I there are things that I don't know if I have the eye for. He's got like this really good artistic eye, and he will point out things. Like you'll see, oh, look at this picture here, Dad, and there's this thing where it takes the shape right here over here on this thing, and he'll point out like very specific things, and I would have never noticed that, and okay, yeah, I get it. And he's teaching me all this stuff, and I'm like, where does this come from, right? And it's just natural.
Right.
It's cool.
It's that's fat. How did I produce that?
It's cool when your kids surprise you.
Yeah, he surprises me with a lot of stuff, and he's like a really good. And this sounds weird, but he's an excellent beatboxer, right? And he figures out like all this.
Yeah, he is. He's a kick-ass.
All this stuff that he has figured out. Like the other day, he was having a conversation with me, and he just brings this up. He's like, "Okay, Dad. So I've learned that if I make the sound instead of the sound or whatever, I'm just paraphrasing, right? But I can make another sound while I'm making that sound, so I can make two sounds." While I'm doing that, so that if I just do the other one, I can just make the one sound. And I'm like, how are you coming up with this shit, kid?
Yeah. That's a pretty cool skill to have.
It is.
Right. And he's just figuring out all these things that don't click to me. And I realize there are probably lots of things that click to me that may not click to him or other people. And that's kind of how we kind of figure out who's good at what in life.
Yeah.
But that's the thing, like with directing, like I feel like as I get older, I'll start to see those things come to me more slowly. I don't know if like going to school for it makes them come into focus a little bit more easily.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of things that I'll start to pick up, like watching directors that I enjoy, and I'll start to think, okay, maybe that's why they did that, right? Maybe that's why they took this angle. Okay, now I kind of get it, but like it intimidates me. Like I love the idea of directing, and I've done some stage directing, and I can kind of understand that, but it's a whole different ball game.
Right.
When you're working with film, you're painting a much bigger picture, I think, in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
So many elements.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it can be quite intimidating, but it's also not as hard as you might think. Because you have a lot of, when I'm doing a film like I'm Just Fucking With You or They Come Knocking, there's so many different people involved.
Yeah.
That I think everyone assumes that the director is doing everything, but that's not really the case. So you kind of you rely on talented people to fill in your own gaps, so to speak. So
you think you tend to give them their freedom. You don't like how much improv you allow, or things like that.
Well, yeah. I mean, I've done films that are entirely improvised. I really enjoy doing that kind of stuff. And then I've done stuff like Junkie, where it was I made the actors do the script without changing anything.
Yeah.
So it just depends on the project. So
yeah,
sure.
Yeah, that one had to be controlled.
Yeah. I was just really, trying to say something with that script. So I wanted people to say exactly what had been written instead of just going off on tangents, which happens quite often.
No, there are times where improvisation can work and it can give the right vibe and feel to something, but there are other times when that dialogue is there for a reason and it's got something, and it only really works when, like, if you're doing Mammoth, you got to do it the way it's written or it doesn't work.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, but I'm quite a kind of experimental person. I like trying all different stuff especially with directing. But over the years, I've just kind of, I'm quite different from other directors in the sense that I do tend to do most things myself. Like, I do my own camera operating, I do my own lighting, I edit all my own stuff normally. So I'm very hands-on with all that stuff. But most directors aren't like that.
Even the drone shots? Because I was wondering about those.
Yeah. I do the drone shots.
Yeah. You ever wreck one of those fucking things?
I have, yeah. I've wrecked two of them, actually. It's absolutely heartbreaking, yeah. I did this movie last year for a band called Alice in Chains. It was it was a bunch of it was like I did 12 music videos that kind of you put them together and it's a film. And I was flying my drone.
Black antenna. Yeah.
Black antenna, yeah. And I was flying my drone at night, and I thought for some reason that they were supposed to have built-in sensors so you couldn't crash them. And I basically I flew it at like 40 miles an hour into a tree, and it just disintegrated.
Yeah.
And then immediately after that, I was doing I'm Just Fucking With You, and I insisted on having some drone shots of the car at the beginning. I don't know if you remember that bit.
Yeah.
And actually, that shot of the BMW driving down that mountain road, I ended up crashing my drone into that mountain, and I had to hire I had to get a professional climber to climb up and get it, and
Oh,
luckily
my
it
God.
didn't die. But yeah, that was I shouldn't fly drones.
It was a tricky shot. That's what made me think about it. It was just that canyon scene, that road scene. It's like,
I'm just terrible at flying them.
oh, not too bad.
Have you heard the story? I'm trying to remember it. Of Trent Reznor was making like a video for Nine Inch Nails, like early
I know
on
that's right.
in their career, and like they to do it, they like tied a camera to a weather balloon. And they were trying to film it, and like it was just very graphic. Like there was like a shot of him dead in the film or something.
He was being beat
like
up by skinheads in a parking lot.
Right.
And he was like being beaten to death. So the
camera gets away from him. The camera gets away from them. It flies off, weather balloon. They never see it again. Someone finds it and turns it into the police. And there's like this big murder mystery going on about who this was. They're trying to track down what happened and figure it all out. And it was just him trying to make a video, and the camera got away.
Yeah, they found it in like Michigan, like in a field, and like the farmer thought that he found like a snuff film.
Right.
You know, it's like, here's these pink balloons tied to this camera.
Wow.
And we decided to look at the film that was inside it. It's like, here's a man being beaten to death by skinheads in a parking lot. And it was Trent Reznor making a music video in Chicago, like Wax Trax Records era thing. And
is the shot in the video now?
Yeah, it is. Yep, the shot's in the video now. Yep, you can see it. But the funny thing was, it was on one of those true crime shows or something that were popular, like in the late 80s, early 90s. Right. And it came down to a big thing, and they tracked him down, and like finally they found these punks in Chicago who were like, yeah, I know who that is. That's Trent. He's still alive.
He's fine.
He's fine.
Yeah. What song is it for? Do you know?
I can hear it in my head. If I'll
one of the early videos.
I'll find it.
Down in it. What's it?
Down in it. That was the name of it. Yep. Down in it.
Oh, off the first album. Yeah. I haven't seen that video. I'll check that out.
He was up above it.
Yep. Above, and I think that was the shot. You know, he's singing, I was up.
That's funny.
On the ground, and like the balloons go up, and they were like, fuck, and it was really windy, and it just blew away. They had to watch the camera go, and you're like, well, fuck, we're never getting that one back. But they did. After a lengthy police investigation, they got it back.
Right. Yeah. I will check that out after we finish this.
So with the bands that you work with for videos, how often is it you approaching them these days, or them approaching you? And do they come to you with ideas, or do you just kind of tell them, here's what I'm thinking?
I mean, most of the time I come up with the idea, but occasionally they'll have an idea. You know, like I just I'm doing this a few videos for this German DJ called Paul Van Dyke at the moment, and those ideas came from him and his wife, but that's pretty unusual. So mostly the band will send me a song, and then I'll come up with an idea. But now, they normally come to me these days. Like I haven't actively pursued a job for a while.
Right.
Kind of annoying. Like I don't know if you know about the process of trying to get music videos, but basically the record label will send out the track to a load of different directors, and then you have to write a treatment, which is basically like a detailed document outlining what the video will be, and then you realize that you're basically one of 20 people writing these treatments.
Wow.
And it's really time consuming. And I used to do it all the time, and but these days I just can't be bothered. And it would be annoying. Like back in the day in England when I was doing a lot of videos, you'd get turned down for a job, and then a few months later you'd basically see your concept on the TV. Right?
Oh man,
oh fuck, because you're submitting that to them, and they've got it now. So
yeah, and then they just take it. They take a few ideas here and there, and then you realize that people are just stealing all your ideas.
Shit. That sucks.
So now I just don't play that game at all.
Well, I had a lot of great ideas I was going to give you, but I don't know if I should.
Right? Yeah. Exactly. Well, yeah. People.
Right.
Unfortunately, people do steal. People just take ideas.
Yeah.
All the time.
We usually offer them up for free.
Yeah.
maybe a screen credit. Maybe just a. Yeah.
Right.
Liner note. Whatever. We're cool with that.
But now I mainly just do the music videos because I really enjoy that scene.
Yeah.
So if something comes up and I like it, then I'll just do it, and I'm not worried about money or anything. Yeah. If I like it, I'll do it.
Well, and what you did with like Black Antenna is totally different though too, because it's a series of like, what is it, 11 different films, like 5 minutes each, or 10 or 11.
Well, yeah, it's basically I did a video for every song on
that
the last
album.
album.
Yeah.
And you watch them in order, and it tells a story like a movie, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was extremely hard work.
Yeah, I bet.
I can imagine.
So are other bands catching on to that? Are they wanting to kind of do something similar with that concept, or was that kind of a one-off, do you think?
But it's just an interesting time because bands are having to do different things to stay relevant and get noticed.
Right.
You know, I mean, I doubt a band like Alice in Chains has to stay relevant, but I mean, they're taking risks. It's a good time. Like 10 years ago, the whole music video scene just died, and I honestly didn't think it would come back. Like, you know, piracy just killed the record labels, and no one was making videos anymore.
Right.
For a long time, and then probably about 5 years ago, I started to get approached again, and now that there are budgets, and again after a long time of there not being
right.
And so like Black Antenna, I think that they wanted to find an interesting way of promoting the album, so that's how that came up. And then I've been doing this really interesting podcast with Korn, the band Korn.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's really cool. That's like an evolution of what's happening in the music video world.
So what's the podcast about? I'm curious.
It's actually set in Lawrence, Kansas, which is
interesting.
It's about a journalist who gets approached by a woman who says that her teenage daughter ran off to join a doomsday cult.
Nice.
Oh, so it's like a fiction. It's like a fiction series thing.
It's a fiction series. So he goes.
Cool. I love those guys.
Yeah, he goes undercover in the cult to try and track down the missing girl.
Nice.
And
well, if you ever need any voice work, let us know. That would be fun.
Yeah, it would be a blast.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's funny you should say that because I've only how many have I recorded? I've recorded a handful of them, but now I've got to do 10. So
we've got the regional
I might
accent.
well take you guys up on that.
We're genuine.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. It's funny because I've never actually been to Kansas, but just because of Mark and the Godzillionaire guys, I was like, I'm going to set it in Lawrence.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's funny. So how did you? I was going to ask earlier. How did you come upon Godzillionaire?
That's a good question.
Yeah, I mean, back in the day, Paw were like a big band in England.
Yeah.
They were a well-known band, and I just absolutely loved. I loved both their albums. But I remember when the first one came out, I was kind of like, they're my favorite band,
Yeah.
And then I saw them play live once. Yeah, well, I saw them play live when they came into town, and I mean, they were just kind of like one of my favorite bands from that era. And so, cut forward 20 years or whatever, and through the wonders of Facebook, I just reached out to Mark.
Right.
So, basically as a fan, just saying, if you ever want you ever need a video doing, I would be up for doing it, totally up for doing it. And then he sent me some music, and we basically became friends, and he's been awesome. Yeah. I did a short film that was based on a short story that Mark wrote. Mark's just, I don't know if you know that about Mark, but he's like the most insanely talented writer.
Oh yeah, great poet.
He's very good. Yeah.
Yeah, his poetry and his short story stuff is just like amongst the best I've ever read. Yeah, which I think is probably, in hindsight, one of the reasons that I loved Paul so much was because his lyrics were just so insanely good.
Mm-hmm. And the stories he tells. I think Fourth Floor. Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's an amazing story he's telling, and it's so vivid and kind of naughty.
Mm-hmm.
but honest.
And Absolute Zero, I just think is one of the greatest songs probably ever written.
Yeah.
I just think it's a perfect song, basically. I mean, those guys are so talented. And then, so I've just been really honored to become friends with those guys.
Yeah. Well, come on out, man. Lawrence it's a pretty good town.
Oh my God, I would love to. I mean, I really want to find a way of coming out there and doing a video for them. But
kind of full house right now. I get it. It's hard to do stuff when you got that many little ones.
Yeah, it's like, I'm just taking off to Kansas for a few days, guys. Like, good luck.
I need to get a feel for the place. Right. Yeah. Need to
right.
We're going where Dorothy's from, kids.
Right. Yeah. I'll bring everyone. I wish I could just drive over there, but it's pretty far.
You don't want to do that from LA.
Yeah. No.
Maybe another horror movie.
Yeah, when I was growing up, I was right. Yeah. Hills of Eyes or something. Or when I was growing up, I was a massive fan of Charles Bukowski, the writer.
Oh yeah.
And I kind of like realized that Mark
got some of that. Yeah.
is yeah. Well, I think he's at that level,
Right.
So
Yeah.
it's kind of like Cormac McCarthy meets Charles Bukowski, which I think is just an amazing mix. So
I love Cormac McCarthy.
right, yeah. So I think Mark's poetry reminds me of that.
I quote him like constantly.
Yeah. I love him as well.
He's really good.
So yeah, and then I've heard their new album, which is just amazing, and
oh god, it's so good.
I'm just a big fan.
Yeah,
so good.
They're teasing us just by letting out a single right now.
Yeah. Mark gave us a few tracks. There were other masters and stuff. And it's like, okay, don't share them. It's like, okay. But boy, I have to bite my tongue. Yeah, it's so hard. It's like, oh, I can't share these.
Yeah, that was hard.
They're so good.
Now,
yeah, that whole album is great. It's amazing.
Yeah, it really is. I hope it does stuff for them. So deserve it. So.
Yeah, they're still going to be around. He's got a new gig going too. So
Primitive Race.
I'll have to split time.
Yep.
And what is that?
So sort of a super group. Primitive Races. Chuck Mosley was the former lead singer, who was the lead singer of Faith No More before Mike Patton was the lead singer of Faith No More.
Yeah, I remember. He sung on "Introduce Yourself," wasn't it?
Introduce Yourself. Yeah, that's a prime example of some of Chuck's work or some intro examples. But he did stuff with Primitive Race, and they're kind of semi-industrial too. They've done some work with Ogre from like Skinny Puppy, Dale Crover from Melvins on drums, who's just amazing. But it's sort of a pinch super group of some elite members, and their old stuff is really good. I'm really interesting. I'm really interested to see what Mark does with it.
Right. It'll be so different from Chuck.
Yeah.
It'll be so different from what Chuck does. However, Mark's got the intellectual chops. He's got the writing chops. He's got the singing chops to slay it, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So I'm just on my toes about it. I'm excited about it. So
that's awesome, man.
Really looking forward to it.
Yeah. Are they from all over the States?
Yeah. They'll be from everywhere, but probably primarily LA based, I would imagine. That's what's going to happen.
Right.
I haven't heard anything specific on any of that.
I don't think it means anything for breaking up any other band. I think it's just
no.
It's just in addition to. It's going to bring more eyes to Godzillionaire. It's going to bring more eyes.
Yeah, exactly. That's great.
That's a great thing about music. You don't have to abandon one thing to do another.
Yeah. Right.
You don't have to. Some people do, but you don't have to. And I don't think he is.
Right.
No. Well, that's cool. Yeah, I really look forward to hearing that as well.
Yeah, I am too. It's really cool announcement.
We've got a long list of people we can try and turn you on to that we've had on.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, do it.
If we're looking for some music video work.
Yeah.
Well, when I hear a song and I love it, I just have to. I'm desperate to do a video for it.
Yeah.
Basically.
Good.
Well, check out Adam Casto, Many Colored Death.
Nerd Table out of Columbus, Ohio.
Yeah.
Excellent band. They sell themselves short. Good kind of Fugazi sound is what I compare them to a lot. Yeah. Oh, Many Colored Death out of Columbia, Missouri. Here, it's a great band.
They're finally starting to take off a little bit.
Yeah.
I think they're getting good festivals. They're getting ready to play. Headlight Rivals.
Yes, Manhattan, Kansas. Yep,
is really good.
Yeah.
Red Kate, local punk band that is just awesome. I'm going to see them next week.
Yes, Off the Hook, Red Kate.
Right.
Mark's a big fan of that too.
Sharp Star.
Yeah. There's a lot of them.
Right. Yeah, it seems like there's a great music scene down there.
There really is.
From what I've heard.
Yeah. And we're trying to, and it's one thing we're trying to do. I mean, we talk to a lot of LA bands or East Coast bands or whatever. We always try to bring it back around to, Midwest regional as much as we can. I think that's important just to get the word out of these guys. That some of them are so slept on.
Yeah.
And there's great talent all over the country. I mean, that doesn't slight, people who work in LA, but sometimes we get missed. We get mixed in the basket a little bit. So.
Right. Yeah, that's why I loved Paw so much growing up, because I'd always wanted to live in America. And to me, that first album in particular was just kind of like this perfect vision of my version of what I imagined America to be like, with the pickup trucks and the dogs and, all that kind of vibe.
Yeah, you're definitely in the wrong part of the country to see a lot of that.
I know, yeah. I mean, I drive an old Ford Bronco around for the last 12 years, and I kind of
All right.
I dress like a kind of English redneck most of my life. So
yeah, you need to get to the Midwest sometime. We'll show you around.
Yeah,
we'll get you.
Yeah. I think I would probably love it.
Absolutely, would love to have you. Well, you guys want to wrap it up around then? We're about at time. I don't want to drag your evening out too late or anything.
Sure, man. Thank you. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Any upcoming shit or anything that you're
just trying to think. Yeah, I'm finishing up another music video for Korn that I've been doing. That'll be out soon, I hope. Yeah, I just keep working away. So I'm hoping to do some more stuff with Godzilla and hopefully have another movie this year.
Yeah. So are you wanting to direct more? I know you were kind of talking about you were focusing on the writing right now. Are you still wanting to get back to directing or?
Yeah. It's just got to be the right thing.
Yeah.
Directing is so kind of like all-consuming. When I did those 2 Blumhouse movies, I'm Just Fucking With You and They Come Knocking, it just like took a swipe out of like almost a year of my life.
Right.
And it's just like I'm just gone. Like they basically own you for 18 hours a day, 7 days a week.
That's got to be tough on a family. Yeah.
It's just really hard work. Whereas with writing kind of my own pace, and I can be around like all the time, which I really love. Like I really love being with my family. So
yeah.
I'm very driven, but I'm not particularly ambitious, if that makes sense. Like I don't want to like just at the expense of everything else to just try and pursue this dream. I'm not that guy. So
well, I think we're kindred spirits on that. That's why we call the show Undetermined.
Right.
Yeah. We like to see where it's going to go. Why when it's forced, it's not as interesting.
It's really undetermined.
Yeah.
We don't have. We're dedicated, but we're not determined. If that makes sense.
Yeah. I can relate to that very much. So, especially in LA, like, you know, people would kill their own mother to be successful here. And I just, you know, that's not shit I'm into. I just don't play that game. So,
yeah, we've kind of had the attitude, like if the podcast goes somewhere, awesome. That is so cool. But if it doesn't, so what? We're having fun, man. We're still getting to talk to cool people, having good conversations. At least I think we're having good conversations.
Sure.
Yeah.
And I honestly, as a listener or a viewer or anything like that, that's what I'm interested in. I'm way more interested in like something that feels genuine because it is genuine.
Yeah.
I totally agree.
You know, once you've been on, we consider you kind of family.
Yep.
So we're gonna.
Oh, thank you.
And we'd love to have you back.
Yeah,
with your next project.
Yeah. I would love to.
Anything else you want to talk about? Anything else you want to promote? And just to bullshit now that we've got the interviewee kind of stuff out of the way.
Yeah, I would love that. And hopefully I'll be able to make a trip down there sometime.
Right.
Yeah.
All right,
man.
All right, guys. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Enjoy your Saturday evening.
Thanks for tuning in, everybody.
Thanks, Adam.
All right. Thanks, Adam.
Take care. All the best.